One of the top candidates is officially off the board, and Jim Harbaugh as he inks a deal to become the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I don't know how involved really the Falcons were. I know Mortensen came out after we did the show yesterday and said, "Oh, there's still heavy interest there." To me, it was a smokescreen on Harbaugh's end. He wanted to get his demands from Los Angeles. He could use Michigan and the Falcons as leverage. That's all he needed to get everything he needed in Los Angeles. I don't think there was ever a real opportunity for the Falcons to land him as their next head coach. And I believe that at the beginning of the process.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Falcons fans kind of trying to convince themselves that Atlanta's situation is better than Los Angeles's. And to a certain degree, they're right. Like in terms of cap health, salary cap health, the Falcons are in a better position. They have the 8th overall pick. Probably more draft picks from the Khalil Mack trade. I don't know that for sure, so don't quote me on that. And, in terms of resources, Arthur Blank can go toe-to-toe in terms of a pocket, deep money with any owner in the league. The fact of the matter is a guy like Harbaugh is going to trade all of that and then some for a guy like Justin Herbert, and you would be a fool not to. It was always going to be the Chargers because of Justin Herbert. The Chargers were already going to be in a terrible place with the salary cap next year, so it doesn't matter. And getting out from underneath the cap, Falcons fans should know better than any. It only takes one season of going full bore. We're going to, get rid of everybody and rebuild, go down to the studs. So it only takes one real season. And when you got a guy like Justin Herbert, he could cover up a lot of deficiencies. So I think it was always the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh did want personnel, decision-making power, or at least a big say. That's what, drove him out of San Francisco when he coached the 49ers all those years ago. And that's not to say he couldn't have it with Atlanta and the Falcons. Honestly, in our ideal scenario, it was Jim Harbaugh and Rich McKay out working one-on-one with Terry Fontenot. The fact of the matter is there was one factor in all of this. It was Justin Herbert. It was never going to be Atlanta, and I think he was just using that as leverage, like you said.
As long as you have Justin Herbert, you're going to be competitive. I don't care if they absolutely dust up the roster and rip it down to shreds and go full bore, like you said, and to, just dump everything that they possibly can, whether it's trades, take it on the chin for 1 year. Even if they do all of that with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, they're still going to be competing for a playoff spot. I mean, you talk about Jim Harbaugh, and we talked about his offensive pedigree and some of the quarterbacks he has coached and led to Super Bowls, Colin Kaepernick, NFC championships, Alex Smith, national championships, J.J. McCarthy. Now he has Justin Herbert. To put him ahead of those guys, there's levels to this. He's like 7 levels above anything Jim Harbaugh has ever had. Jim Harbaugh knows how to adjust to his personnel. He's going to strengthen those offensive and defensive lines. He's a hard-nosed coach. He was the top candidate for the Falcons for a reason among fans, and I think probably even among Arthur Blank. The reality of the situation, as we said, it just was never going to happen.
He did have Andrew Luck at Stanford, so that is, take that for what you will. But yeah, in terms of the NFL, I mean, it would be an insult to put Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick in the same conversation as Justin Herbert. What's crazy is Justin Herbert hasn't even realized his full potential. He's really, he really hasn't under Brandon Staley, who has just completely botched the beginning years of Justin Herbert's career. I know Kellen Moore did a lot for him this past year, but Kellen Moore is not going to be a head coach for a reason, and Jim Harbaugh is. The fact of the matter is Jim Harbaugh is kind of like a quarterback whisperer of sorts. You've said that before. And what he's going to do for Justin Herbert is he's going to put Justin Herbert in the conversations with the elite of the elite consistently. That is the problem with Justin Herbert, is he has been mentioned with the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons, the Joe Burrows. The fact is he hasn't done it consistently enough to kind of, have a real footing in that conversation. That's all going to change. And it's why the Falcons never really had an opportunity. If the Falcons held the number 1, 2, or 3 overall pick, I think we'd have a much different conversation. But the fact of the matter is we're not going to get a top quarterback in this class. And J.J. McCarthy would be a total reach at the 8th overall pick.
Yeah, one side note to this, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but I don't know if you saw this, but Florio on Pro Football Talk, I don't know how this even gets brought up, dude. He goes, Colin Kaepernick has been out of the league since 10 years, but now with Jim Harbaugh coming back, will Colin Kaepernick be back? And then it's like,
Give it a rest.
on his staff. It's like, what? Colin Kaepernick's a coach now? What do we
Give
do?
it a
Like,
rest. Give it a rest.
Florio, like, there's like, I know he just does this halftimes to drum up views and stuff like that, but that's just like one of the most absurd things I've ever heard. Like, if that happens, I'll prove to be a total idiot, but I just don't even understand how that's the first thing that you thought of. How are you even thinking about that? How are you even thinking about that?
Listen, let's not beat around the bush that Colin Kaepernick did get screwed initially. When he was initially blackballed, it was absolutely screwed. But the past 2 years or so, 3 years, that people keep drumming up these, the guy hasn't played football in, we're closer to a decade of him not playing football.
Literally a decade. Literally, we're quite literally 8-9 years away from him last playing football.
It's time to give it a rest.
And I've never once heard Colin Kaepernick asking to be a coach in the NFL. So I just don't even know where the hell this came from. But
it's just sad sometimes. Like, it's in the same breath as Cam Newton when people are like, Cam Newton? It's like, he wasn't good when he was playing, and that was 4 years ago.
I'll say though, Cam Newton, something about him that's really come out in his whole like media tour that he's doing. He's become a much more a very likable dude. I don't know if
sure, but the idea of him coming and playing in the NFL again is
I'm not
hilarious.
even talking about that. Yeah, screw that. I'm just talking about he's become a very likable character.
He's awesome.
I think
he was dead on with his game managers and game changers thing.
I think a lot of it, he's misunderstood and taken out of context a lot with clips. And if you listen long enough to him, he's really articulate, really smart. I really like Cam Newton. Coming up after the break, Baker Mayfield to the Falcons could be a possibility.